I'm dying, the patient tells me. He opens his eyes. It's not very hard. You're not dying, I assure him, taking a cure from my case. I've seen more and more of this as the weeks go on. People know the symptoms of the plague now. They often come in before they go down. And this red, it's the color of the tube, not the cure. It starts working soon. He's old, and when I reach out to pat his hand, his skin feels very fragile. In this society, he could have expected to die in the next few years. Now, who knows? Maybe he's got plenty of time left. All we have to do is go and get him through this plague. You promise? He said, looking right at me. You gave me your word as a physic? I promise. I hook up a vital stat machine to him so that we will alerted if his heart stops beating or if he quits breathing. Then I move on to the next patient. We're keeping up, but it takes every minute of every shift. The outbreak of the plague happened sooner than the rising had anticipated. Overall, the takeover of society has gone well, but it hasn't been perfect. People have accepted the rising because they want the cure. We've all got loyalty for now, but there are still society sympathizers and those who are just plain scared of what's happening. They don't trust anyone. That's what we're trying to change. The more people who come in sick and go out cured, the better. Then everyone can see that we're here to help. Carol, the head physics voice, comes across my mini-port. We have a new group assembled in the conference hall for their welcome speech. Of course, I say. This is another part of my job. I'll come right away. I nod to the nurses on duty on my way out the door. Once I finish the speech, my shift's over, so I won't come back here tonight unless there's an emergency. See you tomorrow, I say to them. I fall into step with others walking to the conference room. I haven't gone far when I hear someone say my name, Carol. There's a crowd of people in black pressing down the hall. It takes me a second to figure out who called me, but then I see her. Official Lee, I say, before I remember that it's just Lee now. The rising's done away with titles. We only use last names. The last time I saw her was almost 2 months ago, back when the plague first came and she was stuck in the quarantine. She couldn't have been in for long. The rising let everyone in the cells go home as soon as the boroughs and cities were secure. But I still walked away and left her there. I'm sorry, I begin. She shakes her head. You did what you need to do, she says. It's good to see you. You too, I say, especially here. Does that mean you've joined the rising? I have, she says, but I'm afraid I need your help to stay here. Of course, what can I do? I was hoping you would vouch for me, she says. If you don't, I can't stay. Each member of the rising is only allowed to vouch for 3 other people. Obviously, we want everyone to join eventually, but right now, we've got to be careful. Vouching for someone isn't something you can take lightly. I've always assumed that my 3 people would be my parents and Cassia, if she needed it, in case I was wrong about her being in the rising. If someone that you vouch for turns to be a traitor, you'll be investigated right along with them. So how much do I trust Lee? I'm about to ask Lee if there's anyone else she can ask, but something in the tightness around her mouth and the way she stands, her posture even more perfect than usual, makes me realize that no, there isn't. She doesn't look away. I'd forgotten how we're almost exactly the same height. Of course, I say. I'll still have 2 people left if something happens, and that I was wrong about Cassia. My brother Tannen can vouch for one of our parents. He's probably planning on it anyways. Not for the first time. I wish I had a chance to talk to him about the rising. Lee puts her hand on my arm very briefly. Thank you, she says. Her voice sounds lovely and sincere, and a little surprised. She didn't think I'd do it. You're welcome, I say. If you're here, I tell the new workers, it means that you're met with the 3 main qualifications required to work in the medical center. First, you have medical training. Second, you're safe because you either contracted the plague immediately and have since been cured, or you received the immunization when you applied to return to work. Third, you've joined the Rising. I pause and let the silence settle before I begin again. You are now part of the rebellion. You might not have known the Rising existed until you heard the pilot speak. Or you may have only come to believe the Rising now that you've seen our cure because you want our immunity. We don't hold that against you, of course. We're grateful for your assistance and our immediate goal to save people from the plague. I smile out at them, and almost everyone smiles in return. They're glad to be back at work and part of the solution. Some of them look downright eager. A woman calls out, "If that's true, then why didn't we immunize everyone before they got sick? Why wait until they need the cure?" One of the Rising officers in the back moves forward, but I hold up a hand. The Rising has given me all the information I need to field a question like this. And it's a good question. Why didn't we stockpile immunizations as well as cures? I asked. That's what you want to know, isn't it? Yes, she says. It would be easy and more effective to keep people from getting sick in the first place. The Rising had limited resources, I say. We decided that focusing on a cure would be the best use of the resources. There's no way to warn the public about the possibility of a plague before it happened without causing panic. And the Rising didn't want to immunize people without your permission, and we're not the society. But we immunize babies, she pointed out, without their permission. That's true, I say. The Rising felt immunizing the infants was important enough we diverted some of the resources in that direction. As you all know, infants suffer most during times of illness. And even a cure can't guarantee the positive outcome of all cases with children so small. In that case, the decision was made to immunize without permission. And the result is that we haven't seen anyone under the age of 2 years come in sick. Let that sink in. Now that the Rising is fully in power, we've already been able to shift additional resources over to making immunization, as we'll save everyone eventually, one way or another. She nods, apparently satisfied. There's another reason, of course, but I don't say it out loud. If the Rising had secretly immunized people and people wouldn't know whom to thank for saving them, they wouldn't even have known that they had been saved. The Rising didn't start this plague. They solved it. The people need to know that. They can't anticipate the solution unless they had known there had been a problem. So the Rising had to let some people become sick. And in most revolutions, many have to die. This is much better. It's my job to remind you, I say looking over at the group, that each of you here, because you have been vouched for by a member of the Rising, they've taken a chance on you, one they believed was warranted. Please don't disappoint them, or us, by trying to sabotage what we're doing here. We are working to save people. I'm not sure where Lee is in the room, and I'm glad. I'm speaking to everyone, and not only to her. Now, I say, let me describe the basic procedures for taking care of the sick. You'll receive more specific instructions in your additional shift assignments as you leave this room. Some of you will go straight to work, others will be assigned to rest and take your turn later. I ran through the basic steps of protocol, reminding the workers the proper antiseptic techniques and procedures like hand washing, disinfecting supplies, and equipment. These practices were especially important since the virus can be spread through contact with bodily fluids. I tell them about the admittance system, the initial medical exams, that we're short on pressurized mattresses, so we'll need to turn some patients up by hand. I describe the wound vacuum so we use for sealing off the lesions when trying to stave off infection. You can hear pin drop when I get to the part about that they all find the most interesting, the cure. Administering the cure is very similar to what you saw on the port screens when the pilot first spoke to everyone, I say. A negative reaction is almost unheard of, but it does occur. It'll take place within the first half hour of the cure administration. What are the adverse reactions? A man asks. Patients stop breathing, I say. They have to be incubated, but the cure still works. They need help breathing for a while. Obviously, only medics are allowed to incubate. Have you ever seen a bad reaction? He asks. 3 times, I say. It's been working at this medical center since the rising took over. In some ways, it feels like no time at all. In other ways, it feels like it's been my whole life. How long does it take for the cure to work? Someone else calls out. Often patients are fully alert within 3 or 4 days, I say, and they move to the recovery area in the medical center by day 6. They'll stay there for a few more days before going back out to their families and friends. The cure is extremely potent. Some eyes widen and people look at each other in surprise. They've seen people come out of the medical center, of course, but they didn't know how fast the cure kicked in. That's all, I say. I smile at everyone. Welcome to the rising. They all clap and someone cheers loudly. The room full of excitement, and they're all glad to be back doing something that matters instead of sitting outside in the barricade walls. I understand. When I'm giving people the cure, I know what I'm doing is the right thing. I stare up at the sleep room ceiling and listen to everyone breathing. Somewhere out in the medical center, Lee's working with patients, and I'm glad she's part of the rising now. She'll take good care of the stills. I wonder why she didn't join earlier. Maybe she just didn't know about the rising. People didn't openly talk about the rebellion after all. I'm sure Tenen's part of the rising like me. He would have recognized the rebellion in our responsibility the minute he heard about it. And he's immune to the tablet too. He's a perfect fit. I never could figure out why Kai didn't join the rising right away. Back when we first asked us, the rising could have helped him. But he didn't. He wouldn't tell me why. Even before Cassia went out to the Outer Providence to find Kai, you could tell that she might do something big. Like the day at the pool when she finally decided she was ready to jump. She went into the water without looking back. So I shouldn't have been surprised at the way she fell in love with Kai, because it was the way I wanted her to fall in love with me, completely. The only time I was tempted to try and get out of the rising was when Cassia and I were matched. For a few months there, I played both sides of the game, doing what the rising wanted and acting society at the same time, so that I could stay matched with Cassia. But it didn't take long for me to realize I wanted Cassia to choose me. In some way, our being matched was the biggest stake against me. How was she supposed to love me when society said she should? After Cassia told me she was falling for Kai, I realized that if he left, she'd go too. She jumped. So it wasn't hard to recognize that society wouldn't let Kai live in the maple tree barrow forever, and anywhere he went might be dangerous. I had to send something with her, something that could help her, and that would remind her of me. So I printed the picture from the port and went outside to get new rose petals. But though they were both things to remind her of the past, I decided that wasn't enough, so I wanted to give her something that could help her in the future, and that would make her think of me. And it was all the ironic that Kai was the only one who told me about the archivist. Without him, I might not have known how to trade. All I had to give the archivist was a silver box for my banquet. In exchange, they gave me pieces of paper printed from one of the ports. All the information told them from my official matching microcard, plus a few changes and additionals of my own. Favorite color? Red. Has a secret to tell us match when he sees her again. That's the easy part. Getting the tablets is the harder. I didn't fully understand what the archivists were asking of me when I agreed to trade, but it was worth it. The blue tablets kept Cassia safe. She had told me that on the port. There's something about the blue. I roll over on my side and stare at the wall. The night at the banquet, when I waited at the air train stop, with my parents and brother. I hoped Cassia and I would be on the same train. That way we could at least ride to the city together before everything changed. She came up the stairs holding on to the skirt of her green dress. I saw the top of her head first and her shoulders and the green of the silk against her skin. And finally she looked up and I saw her eyes. I knew then, and I know her now, and almost sure of it.